This is a complete scam. They want you sick and obedient. With the type 2 diabetes, the obesity, the addictions, the crippling pain, you are a perfect customer. So just before we get into it, I've been on carnivore now for 27 months. In that time, I've lost 34 pounds. I've reversed my pre-diabetes, my arthritis. I'm sleeping better. I'm feeling better, more energy. I'm thinking more clearly, and a host of other things. And best of all, I'm not hungry anymore. And I've interviewed hundreds of other carnivores who are all experiencing similar changes and sometimes even more fantastic improvements. So anyway, on to this scam. Do you remember the Tufts Food Compass? It was all in the news around late 2022, early 2023. Everyone was talking about this thing. It's a new way of comparing foods. We've got a whole system. We've got a scoring system and we've got lights. We've got traffic lights. So green is eat most often, yellow is eat moderately, and red lights are the foods that you really want to avoid. Sounds reasonable, and it's a really easy way of looking at things. You know, if things are on the green list, then I know I'm good to go. If things are on the red list, then I should be maybe moderating my intake a lot, maybe once a week, once a month, that kind of thing. The trouble is, when this thing was published, the results were absolutely ridiculous. So on the Tufts Food Compass, kale was rated as, you should be eating lots of this, and M&Ms were not. And that makes total sense, right? You can understand that, right? So kale comes from nature, comes from the ground. M&Ms come from a factory, and they're made up of predominantly sugar. That makes total sense. But then you look a little bit closer and you realize that Honey Nut Cheerios are green, which means, you can eat this as much as you want, basically. Fried egg and ground beef are red. You should avoid these natural foods. You should avoid a fried egg and you should avoid ground beef. But have at it with the Honey Nut Cheerios, buddy. Go for your life. Eat up. Which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. But anyway, we'll get into more detail on that. But just one thing, fried egg or fried eggs and ground beef, this food is self-limiting, right? There's only so much you can eat before your body says, okay, I don't need any more of this. Stop eating now. I'm satiated. That's it, right? Have you ever experienced that eating a bowl of Cheerios? Have you ever eaten a bowl of Cheerios and gone, you know what? I'm satisfied. I'm done. I don't want any more of this. The first thought you have as you're nearing the end of a bowl of Cheerios is, where's the other bowl of Cheerios? Where's the next bowl of Cheerios coming from? Who's going to get it for me? Or am I going to have to get it up and get it myself? But most of you have probably heard something about the Tufts Food Compass, and so I'm not going to dwell on that part too much. What I am going to talk about is how much of a scam I think it is. Or I should say, how much of a scam it was. Because there was a whole load of fanfare around this when it was first launched, and then nothing. It's almost like they were embarrassed about it, or it's been abandoned, or it served its purpose. And I think the main point is it served its purpose. So a lot of times in business, especially in public companies, you'll find that these massive projects get initiated and everyone gets really excited about it, and the teams work really hard on the project and almost to the point of exhaustion, and they're really trying hard to meet the deadline and get all the deliverables, and oh my goodness, if I do all this, I'm going to meet my KPIs for the year, and I'm going to hit bonus, and everything's going to be fantastic. It gets delivered close to the deadline, and then everything gets forgotten about. The project never fully gets implemented. It just seems like everyone suddenly forgets about it, or it gets abandoned. Or it's almost like all the people working on it knew that it was a kind of weird project and it wasn't going to be workable, but they just bit their tongues and they went along with it because they knew if they put their hand up and said, "What is this rubbish?" that everyone would get upset with them. Now, often this happens in big companies, especially public companies, where managers or executives, they start a project because they've got specific goals that are not necessarily related directly to the project. And those goals might be something that they can, again, accomplish indirectly through doing this project. It could be something from justifying the amount of staff that they need or justifying the amount of budget they need. Because if you don't use the staff, if you don't use the budget, then next year you're going to lose it. But in the case of Tufts Food Compass, I think it's similar but different, and different in a more nefarious way. This reason is why it seems to have been just abandoned. Let's just go over to Google and let's see how much it's been mentioned recently. All right, so let's go Tufts Food Goof. Yeah. Food Compass. All right. And let's go to news. All right. So let's have a look at what news. Now, if you click news, it's going to bring up if there's been press releases or if there's been news from major outlets about this particular thing, right? So Tufts University, May 22, October 21, August 22, January 23. So that's the latest so far, Jan 23. All right, and we keep going down. Like we got ABC, Nature. So, and if there was anything brand new, Google would be putting this up at the top. So basically, February 23 is the latest thing we've got on this. Absolutely nothing. So February 23 is the last time it was mentioned in the news. And I think that's a good sign that this is going nowhere. Now, remember something, Honey Nut Cheerios gets a green light in the Tufts Food Compass. Okay. And who is the company that produces Cheerios? General Mills. Okay. And look at this, food we make. I would dispute that it's food. I would probably put food in quotes, but anyway. So General Mills is the producer of Cheerios. So how did they produce such a healthy cereal that it makes it into the green light section of the Tufts Food Compass? Tufts University, an institution that's going to do good research and is not going to be influenced in any way. How did they find such a healthy cereal that was going to be much better for you than a fried egg or ground beef? I think I found the answer to that one. If we have a look in Google, who funded Tufts Food Compass? Funded by the NIH and food companies such as General Mills. Well, that's a shock, isn't it? General Mills funded the study. Surprisingly, Cheerios gets a green light. I'm shocked. I am shocked. And this is why I believe this is not talked about anymore. It served its purpose. The whole thing about the Food Compass is just about messaging. Cheerios are better for you than ground beef. Cheerios are better for you than a fried egg. How many times was that repeated on the news or on podcasts over the months following the release of this new Food Compass? If we're talking in terms of views, it's probably millions and millions of times. And even if that was delivered critically, the message still penetrates. Cheerios are better than a fried egg. Cheerios are better than ground beef. Cheerios are better than whatever the other things are. This was a good investment, probably cheaper than most forms of commercial advertising. But the purpose was just message this. Just message Cheerios is so wonderful. Of course, there's people going to be critical about it, but majority of people will just be like, oh yeah, well, it's low fat and low cholesterol and all these things. So of course it's good for me. And now my understanding through the marketing messages I've received throughout my life has just been reinforced by such an esteemed institution as Tufts University. And at some point, there needs to be a reckoning about this stuff. It takes less than a second of critical thought to understand that ultra-processed food is not going to be better for you than a fried egg or ground beef. We weren't suffering from an ultra-processed food deficiency until John Harvey Kellogg came along. And it's just so wrong that they continue to push this kind of messaging. And here's one way we can fight back against this messaging. We keep up the messaging on our side. I'd love to have you on the channel to share your carnivore story. All you need to do is send me an email to realzerocarb@gmail.com and we'll find a time that works for you. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Check out this video next.